Hey, hi everyone. So we're gonna start here shortly. I'll just make sure everyone is here. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the technique, do a refresher on the two parts of the technique, of the inquiry technique. And and then if there's any questions or anything coming up in your practice as well at any point, um, feel free to just ask questions along the way. It's great if I've been sort of listening in to the um, dyads and picking up some of the things that are happening. So hopefully this talk will be relevant for what's happening in the dyads in the moment. Um, so yeah, I'll just start out with the two parts of the technique. So, so the first part is the direct inquiry into your true nature. And this is the part that is impossible to convey. This is intending to directly experience your true nature. And this, this imperative, tell me who you are. If the mind does anything when we receive that, if the mind is looking, the mind is doing something to try and find out the truth, then it's not direct. Then it's via the mind. So that intention, directly experience, is like a Zen koan. It's exactly like a Zen koan. Tell me who you are is meant to drop off the mind. It's direct. We want to, come recognize being, awareness itself in the present moment. Um, so that these Zen koans, it's like show me your original face before you were born. When the mind tries to do something with that, the mind just is like, what is that? And so there's a dropping of the mind and a recognition of, I amness, or, these different teachers call it suchness or whatever that is, but it's the ineffable beingness that is present in every moment. So that first part of the technique, we we intend to simply abide as the self, or to be here awake. And there's an intention. And this is the paradox, who is intending? Who is intending something? So even that is there's a dropping and just recognizing that which is ever present. That awareness is already here. It's just, we the habitual tendency of the mind is to obscure. The sense of I becomes entangled with the mind. So we simply recognize that which is ever present. Um, and then the second part is to report whatever comes up as a result of that inquiry. So, so it's like Ramana says, when we start to inquire into our true nature, we turn towards the self. What we see, what usually comes up, is the false self. It's always the false self first, and this is the clearing. This is the clearing process. We always see the false self first. Whatever needs to be cleared in the mind will come up. And sometimes um, there may be just a peaceful presence. We might be abiding in the witnessing part of the mind, which is still part of the mind. And, in that space, then, the deeper parts of the mind come to the surface. And, there might be doubts, insecurities. The mind is always doubting, at the mind. I've heard it already a few times. The mind is like questioning, am I awake? Is this real? And and the mind, of course, never, that conditioned mind will never awaken. It we awaken from that conditioned mind. So these are the things that we clear in this process. And this um, this process really functions the same way as every authentic practice that leads to samadhi. I was just reading the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which talks about samyama, the three limbs of yoga, the three final limbs of yoga, which are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. And it's the same thing that we're doing here. It's exactly the same. We're being continuously present, single pointed attention, and surrender, just allowing whatever is coming up in the mind to be exactly as it is. Um, the dhyana, the deepening into absorption, into the now. So this constant surrendering, and these are the two facets of every authentic practice. Showing up single pointedly in the moment and continuous surrender to what is. And these two aspects lead us um, to samadhi, or um, to recognition of our true nature. So I'm going to, I wrote a few things down, and I'm just going to mention them. Just some things that came up. These are always good pointers. So one thing, we want to, when we're reporting, only report what comes up as a result of the inquiry. So so we do, our direct inquiry, we do it, and we we recognize that true self. And then, what comes up in the mind and body as a result of that inquiry. So there's phenomena that is just, whatever, our stomach is hungry, or we're there's an itch on my left ear. We don't have to report those types of things. Um, what comes up, what moves in the mind and body as a result of that inquiry. These are the things that are coming up from the depths that we want to explore. So these sort of typical weather report kind of things, we don't have to worry about those. Um, another pointer is, once we've had glimpses or awakenings, or we feel we know who we are. Sometimes there's this knowing in the mind that comes. The mind becomes a knowing mind, and so sometimes we will be in the inquiry, and we know that our true nature is awareness, whatever name we give to it. And sometimes there can be a bypass that starts to happen, where there are things that may want to be coming up in the mind. There may be thoughts still arising, or emotions, or feelings, but this knowing mind will dismiss them. It's like, it's just mind phenomena. It's just thoughts coming up. but I know who I am. I'm just here. I'm awareness. Um, but the technique is we want to catch those thoughts. We want to clear the mind. So we don't want to dismiss anything that is authentically coming up as a result of that inquiry. We really want to catch those thoughts, feelings, emotions, share them fully and as honestly as we can, um, and really notice if the mind is like a knowing mind. Um, I always say like beginner's mind is the beginning and the end of this practice. The not knowing mind. So, when the mind is confused, and it's amazing, we we go through this. The mind is tenacious, at creating facsimiles of awakening. It creates, this whole knowing, and we acquire this non-dual language, or and it's different for everyone. Some people will refer to the awakened state as awareness or consciousness or whatever, but it doesn't matter what word we give it. The mind can appropriate it, and it's quite often the false I that is, if it's a knowing mind, taking ownership of it, then we if the mind really, when we're directly in presence, um, there's no need for that knowing, that commentary, because you just are that. Um, so yeah, so that knowing mind, we have talked about in the past how there's this witnessing part of the mind. Um, so in Buddhism, they have like the five skandhas, so you have sensations, perceptions, the samskaras, the resistance to what is, and then there's this witness part of the mind that is aware of all of that phenomena, this witnessing part of the mind. Um, and that witness, it's beautiful when we can start to really recognize and abide as the witness. There is a settling of the mind. So we stop getting getting entangled with the phenomena, and we start to recognize that witness. But that's also another trap. That witness, um, is the last holdout of the ego. The witness is, um, if that knowing part of us, that if we think we are that witness, um, we can hang out in that space for a long time. And it can be very peaceful. The mind can get very, very quiet and settled, which can be a beautiful part of the process. But we want to go beyond witness and witnessed. If there's, it doesn't matter what word we give it. If there's this sense of, being the witness of, or if I'm conscious of, if I'm aware of, then there's something I'm aware of. There's some thing that I'm conscious of. So there's still a duality. There's still a split. Um, so we want to go beyond that witnessing part of the mind, which is, it's like a camera. It's that part of the mind that it looks here and there. It's observing all the phenomena. So it chooses to look here or there. But who is is the one that is aware of all of that? Who's aware of the thoughts, sensations, preferences, and that moving mind? Who's aware of the camera? So that awareness has no quality. The awareness is pure, and I'm speaking of the ineffable, pure beingness. It's non-dual. reality. It's what's beyond witness and witnessed. So for awareness, we can only be it. We can't ascribe properties to it. So, so if it's moving, if it's doing something, it's that camera of the mind, um, the attention of the mind that moves here and there, the concentration on one thing or another. Um, so just yeah, so that when we really become conscious of that, when we can distinguish, that movement of the mind and realize it to be not us, realize it to be empty of self, then we, you know, we're creating the conditions for awakening. Um, that's a big letting go, and it's one that you know, it's like the mind will come back. The mind will, engage in those operations. So to catch it over and over is important. Um, so let me just see if I have any other things I wanted to mention. So I'm going to so Lila has put together uh, some pointers as well. And Lila and I have been doing our own practice for the last few weeks. We've been in our own sadhana practice, doing a lot of meditation and inquiry. So these are some insights. She's been really deep in the process. So these are some amazing pointers. And I'm just going to go through these. And Lila, if you want to jump in at any point, feel free. And and then if there are any questions after that, we can go into questions, or if it's all clear, we can go back into dyads. So, oh, and yeah, there is one more thing before I get into that. Um, So one of the questions that has come up for other people who have been working with Murray or the different self-inquiry groups out there. So there are these other imperatives that we can start to work with. So we've mostly been working with who, tell me who you are. Um, so if we once we've got the who, once we're clear on who we are, so essentially abiding as awareness, we can start to explore what you are, because what you are. So the who is just this. It's the no thingness of abiding in presence. There's no like it's empty awareness or whatever you call that. So it's just being awake. But what you are is an opening. It takes you into then direct experiences. So direct experience, there are infinite manifestations of direct experience. So what you are, you can have direct experience of anything that is arising in the moment. And these beautiful peak experiences that come and go, we open to life in all of its manifestations through the what, because what you are is everything, the Savakalpa samadhi, or the impermanent samadhis that can be experienced are essentially the what. It's like Nisargadatta said, "I am not." So it's there's the I am, but then there's also I am not. Whatever is arising. So at the beginning of the path, it's like we realize, we're not we're not limited to anything that is arising within the field of changing phenomena. Um, we wake up from all that, and then what you are is going back into a direct experience, a direct connection with life. So realizing that I am not too. I am not too. So, but we only work with that after we're awake, because otherwise we can. If you start working with what you are before the awakening, then you can start to experience these savikalpa samadhis or peak experiences, but you'll almost inevitably start chasing states or chasing experiences. So knowing who you are, you abide as presence, allowing all these states to come and go, without attachment. Um, so if so once you're fully present, then it's something that can deepen your samadhi. A it's a moving into the non-dual unfolding of that I am. The I am is not something separate from what is arising. Um, so I'll go into Lila's insights here. So the first one, when thoughts such as I am me or I have always been me start to arise, um, the mind is saying, I'm me, I've always been me. Um, really notice if this is just a concept. Is this something coming from your memory? Um, is the mind just remembering how an awakening unfolded? Um, so again, this is coming back to that knowing mind. If the mind is sitting there knowing, you know, this is what happened before, or, I know I'm awareness. This is where you get really honest with yourself. Is this just a concept that's arising? So our true nature, if we're truly abiding as awareness, pure awareness, um, it doesn't need the thought I am awareness. It's direct. You're already that. Um, so yeah, so we recognize it when um, the thought, like we can be in that state. The incredible sort of mystery of this is that when we are abiding as awareness, somehow awareness can speak as well. So, so when we're speaking from that place, um, if the true self says, I'm awareness, it's true in that moment. But when the ego says it, it's not true. So, so the words are not important. It's like who is saying it. That's what's important. Um, so the next one, approach self-inquiry with an open mind and a don't know mind, regardless if you have directly experienced your true nature or not. So yeah, so it doesn't matter what has been experienced in the past, whether you've had awakenings, kensho, samadhi, we always begin with a beginner's mind, a don't know mind. It's always the way in. There's always a clearing until we're fully liberated. There's this ongoing clearing process, this ongoing, um, grounding of, and coming into the now by by sort of stabilizing this this whatever this is, this open state. It is just an open state. It's a state of just directly being here now. Um, so yeah, approaching it with an open mind and a don't know mind. Um, so when you receive the imperative, one of the things Charles Berner talks about is just being open, being completely open to whatever comes as a result of that inquiry. Um, and the next one, I mentioned this already, but I'll say it again. Make sure you clear all the thoughts that are coming up, no matter what they are. Don't dismiss any thought. Um, that includes images, all images, thoughts, feelings, emotions should be reported, um, and really get it across. Whatever's coming up, this is the way that we clear the mind. So um, it can be uncomfortable when we realize that the mind is busy, and sometimes we have the thought, I shouldn't have a busy mind. Like, I know who I am. This shouldn't be happening. Um, you know, the ego is resistance to what is. Um, so if we're resisting those thoughts, that's just the mind resisting itself. Sometimes if we're you know in this facilitation program, facilitators, and I've gone through this myself, thinking, I feel far from being awake in this moment, and that's a beautiful thing to clear. You know, um, just any and but catch that it's the mind. It's not you. It's the mind is generating these thoughts. The mind generates a constant stream of self-doubt, or it depends on your particular mind. Some minds, that's not a habit pattern of the mind, but for some people it can be. So when we're reporting it, we can just say, the mind is doing this, um, and it's a way to um, sort of um, create these conditions again. Um, so if the ego is uncomfortable, the ego is wanting something other than what is, we just notice, just report it. Um, the next one, so the mind's resistance to what is a very common thing during self-inquiry. So this resistance can come as a thought, wanting something to happen other than what is, or expecting something to happen, such as an awakening. Um, can come as an agitation that can't be pinpointed, because it is the ego itself. And this resistance to what is comes with always some sort of contraction in the body. There's always some, whatever's happening in the mind, there's some resistance within the body. The emotional field, maybe it's sometimes very subtle, but it's always there. So if we can really attune to the subtle, really notice, what is coming up in the mind and body, no matter how subtle. Really catch those contractions and that resistance. And you don't have to do anything to release it. Just by noticing, just by making it conscious, it will release itself. There's nothing to do with that. Um, and the next one from Lila, this one it's a big one. The false self believes it is the real self. The false self creates facsimiles. So the false self can and will pose as awareness during self-inquiry. Um, and this is the spiritual ego. This is the persona. Um, so once again, it's this knowing mind. We if we catch it, and um, and there's a there's a big difference between knowing who you are with that mind, and that direct open space of pure beingness. Um, so yeah, and there's one more thing here. So yeah, as long as we're interested in objects, including our thoughts, um, then we're the mind is dimming things, or you could say we're dreaming. Um, so so the Kensho, that awakening is, as Dogen said, it's the dropping off of mind and body, which even mind and body are just concepts. It's this direct being, just being. It's empty awareness. So there's this clarity in the absolute absence of mind and thought. Um, and then, from this place, like the deepening of it, then, the non-dual mystery is that we can allow that mind to come back, and we're still here. Somehow, that ineffable can speak. Somehow that ineffable can, um, engage in dyads, and there can be, um, words pouring out, and it's this is the mystery. Um, but the stages, the Kensho, the dropping of mind and body, we're not going, that can happen. It can happen if it has happened, and it has happened, because I've witnessed quite a few of you here. um, but it doesn't happen every time. The Kensho can be like this dramatic flip, or it can be something, where it's like the mind very gradually drops away, and it can be just a very gentle sort of coming into presence, or recognizing that presence that is ever present. So whatever experience has had in the past, if you've had that dramatic flip, um, it may never happen again. It may never happen that way again. It may just become this gradual recognition, or just a gradual dropping of the mind. Um, yeah. Um, Is there anything you'd like to add, Lila? Is that no? Okay, awesome. Um, any questions or anything coming up in your practice?
Dan, I have a question.
Sure, Leif. Yeah,
I was wondering when, like, who is reporting? I feel like the mind is reporting, and I'm like, well, when I'm not reporting, I feel very in presence. But then
yeah,
when I have to report, I feel like the mind is starting again to report.
yes, yeah, yeah. That's so. At the beginning, like the mind is being used as a reporting tool to report on itself, basically. Yeah. So yeah, and there will be sort of these two phases of the inquiry. We have this intention to directly experience who we are, and then, so that can be very still and peaceful. And then, we just observe if something is coming up in the mind. But make sure, like, so this is kind of the key to the practice. We just see what's happening in the mind rather than looking for something. We're not trying to manufacture anything or do anything with the mind. So when it comes time to report, maybe there is nothing authentically coming up in that moment. Um, maybe sometimes there's a feeling like I have to fill this silence with something. So really start to notice, is there an expectation for the mind to think it has to do something or manufacture something? Um, and it really just is so simple. We're just observing. We're really in this just sort of observer role, just reporting what's happening. So we don't have to make anything happen or do anything in that process. And then it just becomes there eventually is the sense of ease that starts to come with the practice. And as that sense of ease starts to come, the two dimensions of the practice, the direct inquiry and the reporting, start to blend together more. So it's there's less and less of this sense that, I'm in stillness and now I'm in my mind. Now, we can sort of allow the two to coexist and just you know, with the sense of ease of I'm not trying to make anything happen with it.
And to expand a little more, when should we pass to the witness? Like if let's say we're in presence and we're very calm,
Yeah.
like when do we know it's time to just, hand it over?
hmm there's generally just a sense that there's a completion to the inquiry, so there's no right or wrong for that. It's usually around 5 to 6 minutes. Just typically that's how long it is. But um, sometimes there can be a process that's in play, and that's why we don't use like some of the teachers use timers, that are very precise, where it goes back and forth. But but sometimes, there can be a deepening in that, just abiding in presence. So I wouldn't give any formula for it. I've seen it happen all different ways where, sometimes just abiding in presence, there is this deepening. So I would just say, if you're going, for a really long time, then yeah, maybe not, not going for like the whole 40 minutes or anything, but really give it time to, like, just give yourself time to just be in presence. And usually there's we've done the direct inquiry. Usually something will move in the mind and body, something will come up, even if it's very subtle, there'll be something. We share it, we feel like we've had a complete share, and then we can pass it off.
Cool. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, thanks, Life.
Okay, I just want to continue with that question,
Mhm.
which is if there's a compulsion to stay in the stillness and it's very difficult to report, do we keep on staying there or do we pull ourselves out to describe what's happening?
Well, if there is something to report, we always want to try and catch it. If there's something subtle coming up in the mind and body, or maybe sometimes in that witnessing space, we can we it's they're very subtle things that we can start to tune into. We can, like I described, that part of the mind that is like a camera. That witness is like a camera, so we can start to observe the function of that witness itself, when we're just hanging out in there. So So, we can catch really subtle things like, maybe there is an expectation, just lurking in the just behind our conscious mind. Maybe I'm looking for something to happen or waiting for something. Maybe the mind, that witness is a knowing witness, maybe because of past experiences, there is a knowingness there. Or, whatever's going on, it starts to get very subtle with the witness. So I wouldn't say, like we can't pre-plan it. We can't pre-plan anything with this practice. We can't say it should be this way or that way. It's whatever is authentically coming up in that moment. And I would just say, like that, Charles Berner called it no man's land. When the mind really starts to settle, we're just hanging out in that witnessing space. And that's when, all sorts of things can happen. We can attune to these subtle processes of the mind itself, really seeing the mechanism of how it works. And that can be one entry point into awakening, because if we make that whole apparatus of mind fully conscious, realize it to be empty of self, then we've created the conditions for awakening. um, but also, hanging out in that space, sometimes, big samskaras can come up from the depths as well. Big releases, emotions, all of that. So we never know what to expect in that, so whatever the mind thinks is going to happen, we have to let that go.
Okay. And the second thing is the usage of I, because at the beginning we were supposed to drop the I, but now that I've done a few enlightenment intensives where they tell us like, go use the I as much as possible, use it all the time. And now there's this inner struggle and the I am feeling, or it's very difficult now of the, being trained in one way and then being trained in the other way.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, just question, is it true when you use the I? So in the way I do it here, I never tell people don't use the I always say, sometimes it gets interpreted that way, but I always say, find out if it's true. Really start to examine that usage of I, me, and mine. Um, is it true? And it doesn't matter if you feel like it's authentic to use it, then use it. But really examine, is it true when I'm using these words? And because the use of those words, typically in day-to-day life, almost always when people in normal life are using I, me, and mine, they're talking about the character. So am I that character? Am I angry? Am I tired? Am I, um, whatever it is? Am I hungry? It's the character usually. So the use of that in normal language is reinforcing the attachment to the false self. Um, so I would say, we use those words. They're very common words. So we're going to be using, there's a tendency to use those words. So I would just say, find out if it's true when you're using those words. What is it really pointing towards?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Sue. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, good. So, yeah, let me see what our time is like here. Yeah, so we've got time. It's perfect. We've got time for one dyad until 10:30 here. believe, or no, wait, till 10:10. So, okay, so I will set up the rooms here. Okay, so here we go. See you soon.